So last night I posted this on the community tab letting you guys know to drop some mock trades down in the comments of this post to potentially be featured in today's NHL Deal or No Deal. I'm really excited to bring this series back. It was really popular when I was doing it. It seemed like you guys liked it a lot. You guys always seem to like the videos where your comments could potentially be featured, and they're very fun for myself to do. I stopped doing the Deal or No Deal just because it was after the trade deadline. You know, teams could no longer make trades, and I said I would bring it back in the off season. And now with there only being potentially 3 or less games left in this NHL season, we're already starting to see some small trades like the Kevin Hayes trade, like the Adam Fox trade, and I definitely think we're in for a lot of rumors and big trades this offseason. So I'm very excited to bring this back. And remember, if your comment isn't featured in this video, don't get upset. There's going to be a lot of other opportunities, like the agree or disagrees are always going to be a thing, and there will be many more NHL Deal or No Deals this offseason. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Starting off with one from Hatcher Kane, who says the Nashville Predators trade Ryan Ellis to Toronto for Nazem Kadri. And I actually like this trade a lot, especially from both sides. And Hatcher Kane lays it out nicely here. It says Nashville gets a top 6 forward to help the power play, and Toronto gets a top 4 defenseman to help defensively. And I think a guy like Ryan Ellis would be a perfect fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs and definitely potentially put them over the edge and make them a true legit Stanley Cup contender. And Nazem Kadri I definitely think would help for Nashville as well, like he said here, on either the second or first line unit power play, you know, whatever way they decide to go with that, because he's a good playmaker, but he can score as well. And Nashville's power play was so inconsistent throughout the year and in the postseason as well. So I do like this trade from both sides. Ryan Ellis's new contract does kick in next season at a $6.25 million average, which isn't too bad. It's around the same as Nazem Kadri makes, so it, you know, wouldn't be like adding too much onto the cap, because money is tight for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, but doing this trade wouldn't really affect that whatsoever, and it would help both teams' needs. So honestly, for this trade, I'm going to start off the video by saying this is a deal for me. Next up, we have a trade from Jakob S, or Jakob S, however that is pronounced. Nashville trades PK Subban, and the other way, Florida trades Jonathan Huberdeau. From Florida's side, I'm definitely going to say no deal on this one. Jonathan Huberdeau just had a career year. He's much younger than PK Subban, and you could argue that PK Subban has been getting worse, and he's not on the greatest contract. And I already think Florida has a decent decor with guys like Yandel and obviously Aaron Ekblad, and I don't think giving up a main part of your future in Jonathan Huberdeau for a guy like PK Subban is the right thing to do, especially for a team that's trying to get into the playoffs. You know, he's a younger player. He just had 92 points, which is so impressive, and it kind of gets overlooked, in my opinion, how good of a year that Jonathan Huberdeau had. So for this deal, especially from the Florida Panthers side, I'm going to say no deal. But if Florida came to Nashville and was like, hey, we'll trade you Jonathan Huberdeau for PK Subban, I'm pretty sure the Nashville Predators would do that 100 times over again. But I'm definitely going to say no deal, especially from the side of the Florida Panthers. Next up, we have a trade from Philip Tyka, who says the Rangers trade Plonk and the 20th overall pick to the Jets for Jacob Trouba. And this is an interesting one because Jacob Trouba is a restricted free agent, but I definitely think he has played his last game with the Winnipeg Jets. And honestly, whatever trade they do for Jacob Trouba, I think anything that they get back is just a bonus, because in reality, it's kind of just a cap dump. They can't really afford to bring him back with having to re-sign guys like a Kyle Connor and like a Patrick Laine, who are definitely going to demand a lot of money. And I think Jacob Trouba is going to demand a lot of money as well. He's a good two-way defenseman, just put up 50 points. He's still young, and I definitely think he could be a huge piece of this New York Rangers rebuild moving forward. And I actually like this trade a lot. Getting a guy like Neil Plonk, I'm not quite sure where he would fit in the Winnipeg Jets decor. I think a guy like Sami Niku is probably a better option there. So I'm not quite sure what they would end up doing with Neil Plonk, if they try to flip him, or you never know, maybe he would crack the lineup. But this trade, in my opinion, is just a matter of getting that 20th overall pick, and I think for the Jets that would be a big win. Obviously, if there is any better trades out there, they're probably going to go that route, but if this were the best trade that they could get for Jacob Trouba, I would honestly say yes to this, especially from the New York Rangers side, and I would also say yes if I'm the Winnipeg Jets, so I'm going to say deal on this one. Next up, we have one from Jaspreet. I apologize if I am butchering your name, but they say Toronto gets Olli Juolevi and a 3rd round pick, and the Vancouver Canucks get Kasperi Kapanen. I'm going to say no deal on this one in terms from the side of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm pretty high on Kasperi Kapanen. I think he can be a big part of their future if they do decide to keep him around, and I think if they look at other options, they could probably get a better deal than this, because Toronto isn't really looking for like a prospect defenseman. They're looking for a defenseman to help them win now, and that is what I think they'll probably get in return if they do end up going out and trading Kasperi Kapanen. So they already have guys like Liljegren and then Rasmus Sandin, so I don't think they need another guy who's probably going to have another another year to develop in the American Hockey League like Ole Juolevi, so I'm going to say no deal for this one. Next up, coming from idontgivetkachuk, if you guys haven't subscribed to him, make sure you go check his channel out. But he says Calgary acquires Jason Zucker and Minnesota acquires Michael Frolik and a second-round pick. And honestly, for this one, I think you would probably have to give up a little bit more to get a guy like Jason Zucker. Yes, he didn't have the greatest year, but this is a guy who we know can score 30 goals. And I'm not really sure the direction that the Minnesota Wild are trying to go. Are they trying to rebuild, or are they trying to stay competitive? Especially if you're trying to stay competitive, I don't think you do this trade. And honestly, if you're trying to rebuild, I think they probably look at getting a first-round pick in return for a guy like Jason Zucker, not a guy like Michael Frolik, and a second-round pick. So if Calgary is willing to give up a prospect and maybe a first-round pick, I honestly would do this deal. But if we're doing it like it says here, I'm going to have to say no deal for this one. I think Jason Zucker is worth it a little bit more. Next up, we have a trade from Rantanen96, who says Taylor Hall for Tyson Jost, Martin Kaut, and a 2020 first-round pick. Now, obviously, the rumors have came out that Taylor Hall wants no part of the New Jersey Devils organization moving forward. He wants out, and then that came with all the trade speculation and stuff like that. But then it just came out that today or yesterday, I believe, Taylor Hall and his agent are denying all rumors of that. So it definitely is an interesting story. But if this is true, I think this is a decent trade. But I'm still not quite sure if the New Jersey Devils would do this, because I don't think Tyson Jost or Martin Kaut are going to be near the level of Taylor Hall when they are in their prime, or if they have the potential to be a player, the caliber of Taylor Hall. And I just don't know why Taylor Hall would want out of that organization. I think it's a pretty good situation. I mean, you're getting a guy like a Jack Hughes or a Capo Caco. You have young guys like Ty Smith, Nico Hischier, and Jesper Bratt as well. So it's a pretty interesting story. Definitely one that I'm going to have to follow this offseason. And, if he does want out, definitely going to be a blockbuster trade wherever he goes. But I think I'm going to say no deal for this one, just because I don't think that they're getting back a player that has the potential to be even as good or even a little bit close to as good as Taylor Hall is in his prime. Next up, we have a trade from the Only Zeets, who says Tyson Barrie for either Nylander or Kapanen. And this is interesting because I do think Tyson Barrie would be a pretty solid fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he needs a new contract, and I think he is going to warrant a lot of money, probably up there around $7, $8, $9 million. He's a really good defenseman, and I don't think Toronto is willing to take on someone who's going to demand so much money. That would be making more than William Nylander, and definitely would be making more than Kasperi Kapanen when he signs his new contract. So I'm going to say no deal for this one, strictly from the cap issues. If there was no salary cap, I would like this trade, especially for both sides. But for right now, I'm just going to say no deal, because I don't think Toronto is in a position where they want to take on a guy like Tyson Barrie. Next up, a trade from Hayden, who says Pittsburgh trades Phil Kessel to Vegas in exchange for Alex Tuch and Colin Miller. And this is an interesting one, because I think Vegas, even though they are an expansion team and they're heading into their third season, they're kind of in win-now mode, because they've made a lot of win-now trades. They have a guy like Paul Stastny on the team. They have a guy like Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, and then guys like March So, William Karlsson, all those players in their prime. So definitely very interesting in their position. And I think adding a guy like Phil Kessel would definitely help them in terms of them trying to win right now. But I'm not quite sure if they're going to give up a guy like Alex Tuch, who I think has all the potential in the world to be a consistent 30-goal scorer. For the majority of the season, he was the leading scorer on this team, until Jonathan Marchessault sped up and Mark Stone came around, and then giving up Colin Miller as well. So I'm actually going to say no deal for this one from Vegas' side, and a lot of people might disagree with me on that. I know Phil Kessel is the much better player than Alex Tuch right now, and Vegas kind of is trying to win right now, but also I think they should keep some of their young assets for the future. So I'm going to say no deal for this one, just because I definitely think Vegas wants to keep Alex Tuch. This next trade comes from KJ, who says Ryan Johansen, Dante Fabbro, and a second-round pick for Evgeny Malkin. I'm going to say no deal. I definitely think they would have to throw in a better prospect, maybe a guy like Eli Tolvanen, and probably a first-round pick if they do want to get back a player of Evgeny Malkin's caliber. But I like what this trade is starting out as, and I definitely could see it happening potentially if these Evgeny Malkin trade rumors are true and Pittsburgh ultimately does want to trade. So if maybe it was like Ryan Johansen, Eli Tolvanen, and a first and a second, or maybe Tolvanen and Fabbro, a first and a second, or something like that, I could see it happening. But for right now, I'm going to say no deal for this one, just because I think Evgeny Malkin still has a couple years left of being one of the top players in the NHL. So I'm going to say no deal from this one, but I definitely like where it's at. Now, finishing off the video with a trade from Andrew Colvin, who says to St. Louis, Taylor Hall with a 8-year, $10 million extension. To New Jersey, you got Jordan Kyrou, Joel Edmondson, and Robbie Fabry, and a 2020 first-round pick. pick, and I like this trade a lot. I mean, adding Taylor Hall to a St. Louis Blues team that is currently in the Stanley Cup Finals, I think that would be a really good fit for him and for St. Louis getting him back. And then going back the other way, I think New Jersey is getting a very solid return, getting Jordan Kyrou, who I'm very high on. I think he has the potential to be a fantastic top 6 forward, and for Joel Edmondson, I think he has the potential to be a really good top 4 defenseman as well. Robbie Fabbro, if he can stay healthy, I think he still has a lot of potential to be a very solid player. And then throwing in a 2020 first round pick. So I actually like this trade a lot, and if those rumors are true of Taylor Hall wanting out and the New Jersey Devils exploring trade options, I would actually say deal to this one, because I think you're getting a pretty good return as players that could go into your lineup right now to really compete, and they're going to be good for the future as well, and you're still getting that first round pick. So I'm going to say deal for this one. I like this trade a lot. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope you're excited for the return of this series. I'm probably going to do it maybe every other week, or maybe once a week if you guys want to see it that much. And make sure to let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on all these trades and any trades that you could see happening this offseason. And with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.